Pastor Doug here from Crossroads. It's great to be with you. I hope that today's message will draw you closer to Jesus.
Thought and invitation. You went to invite someone to dinner or to some other activity or something, and you just couldn't seem to find the right words. In fact, I did this earlier this week. I was texting a friend to try and hang out, and I must have rewritten that text message like 3 or 4 different times. And this was a really good friend. So sometimes I can occasionally be prone to overthinking invitations. However, the invitations that I have most overthought in my entire life were when I was single and I was trying to ask out a girl. Oh man, did I overthink those like you would not believe. Let me give you an example. At the time, I was working at a warehouse, and there was a girl who worked at one of the stores that are warehouse service. I'd met her a couple times. I thought, okay, I'm gonna ask this girl out. So I drive to the store where she is, and as soon as I pull into the parking lot, I start overthinking this thing. I'm like, well, wait, why am I here? I need an excuse. I need a reason why I'm here. I need to come up with a reason. So I'm in my car, I'm thinking, what's my reason? Why am I here? And finally, I'm like, okay, I have a friend who just moved into a new house. I'm here to get a housewarming gift. Yeah, that's a good one. And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll walk in and start browsing, and then she'll come over to assist me, and then I'm already in a conversation. This is perfect. This is a great plan. So I walk into the store, and I start browsing, and it works, kind of. I did attract attention, but from the wrong employee. Another employee comes up to me and starts talking to me, so I give my cover story, and they start trying to show me stuff. I'm like, get out of here. Finally, I managed to ditch that employee, and I'm still walking around the store, and then I start overthinking again. It's like, well, what's my line going to be? What am I going to say? Am I just going to walk up and ask her? Do I need to start a conversation first? Do I need to see what mood she's in? Well, what kind of mood is the right mood to ask someone out? I don't know. So I'm thinking about this. I'm trying to rehearse my lines. I'm walking around the store. I'm like picking up random items, trying to figure this out. And finally, I'm like, okay, I got something. Okay, so I start walking up, like I see her, I'm start walking up, and then I get 2 steps away, and another employee comes over and starts walking, and I'm like, okay, we're going back over here. Because if I'm going to do this, I'm not doing it with somebody else around. If I'm going to crash and burn, I don't want an audience. Okay, so I do that, and I go back to looking at things, and I'm still thinking about what I'm going to say. Finally, like the other employee leaves, I go to do it again, and as soon as I get close, again, a customer comes up and starts talking to her. So I do another pivot in reverse, and I'm walking around the store trying to kill time. I'm telling you, this happened 4 different times. 4 different times. And the whole time, I'm just like playing over these conversations in my head, walking around. I'm telling you, I was in the store for 40 minutes. 40 minutes. And the whole time, just trying to think through what I'm going to do. The other employees must have thought, like, either this friend is a really important friend that he's searching for, or this guy just really, really cares about interior decor and is really picky about it. But so much time spent wasted on that and overthinking. And we've all done it. We've all overanalyzed a text message. We've all rewritten an email 6 different times. Maybe you've even recruited a friend to help you role play a conversation out ahead of time. So why does inviting always feel so awkward? Why does it feel so awkward? And don't worry, I'll get to the rest of the story later. I know you're all waiting for this. I will get to the rest of the story later. But if sometimes we even struggle with inviting a friend out for dinner, I can imagine that the idea of inviting someone to church or inviting someone for a spiritual conversation can feel even more intimidating, can it? Now, without raising your hand, how many of you would say, I have struggled at times with inviting somebody to church? I've struggled with this. I really, really want to, but I just don't. Or I've had this person, I really knew I should invite them, but when the moment came to do it, I just didn't do it. And maybe later you've even felt really, really guilty about having not done it. Now, if you have ever struggled with this at times, believe me, you are not alone. One of the things we do at Crossroads is every year we do a snapshot survey. There's a few things we like to measure every single year about how are people in our congregation doing. Things like giving or attending service or serving. The bottom line there, the blue line at the bottom, is our invite. We measure, did you invite somebody to church? As you can see, for years running, invite has been the lowest on our list. So if you feel like you struggle with inviting somebody, you are not alone in this. We all do it. And sometimes we worry about this and we think, man, am I struggling with inviting because I'm a bad Christian? And the reality is, no, that's not the case. You struggle because you're human. I mean, this happened to me not that long ago. Okay, right before Easter, I was in a cafe and I was talking to the barista and she asked me what I was doing for Easter, and it was early in the morning. I was like, oh, what am I doing for Easter? Well, I guess I'm going over to my parents' house for lunch. And we're like, what are you doing? She's like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out still. I went and sat down. And then after I left the cafe, I'm like, why did I not invite her to Easter service? Why did I not do that? Why did I miss that? I don't know. I claimed that it was pre-Earl Grey, so I'm not responsible for that. But stuff like that happens. We miss opportunities that might be there for us. So today, we're going to talk about inviting. And we're going to look at a story from the scripture of how someone invited someone else. And hopefully this has real practical lessons for us that will help us rethink what we think about inviting. And hopefully it's going to give us plenty of tips and tricks that will help us along the way and help us improve our ability to invite others. So we're going to jump straight into our passage today, and we're going to be in John chapter 1, and we're going to be at the end of the chapter in verse 43. Now, just a little bit of background on this particular passage. This is early in Jesus' ministry. Jesus is in the process of choosing his disciples, choosing the people who are going to travel with him, live with him, and learn with him for the next 3 years. And Jesus is going to encounter these two guys, and it's going to change their lives forever. So let's look at John chapter 1, verse 43. It says this: the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Jesus chooses and recruits Philip. This is a life-changing moment for Philip. It's life-changing. He's been chosen to be a disciple of the Messiah, the one they've all been waiting for, the one they've all been looking for. And now that opportunity is his. And he decides immediately that he's going to follow Jesus. Now, what's interesting about this story is what Philip does next. What Philip says next in verse 45 is this: Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Philip is unbelievably excited. His life has just been changed forever. He has to share that with somebody. Philip says, "We found him, Nathanael, we found him. We found Jesus. We found the one the prophets have talked about." And we can relate to this idea of wanting to share things we're excited about, can't we? Anytime we find something new or something we're really excited about, we want to share it. We find that new cafe that has unbelievable baked goods, and we're telling everybody, you got to go there. You got to check this out. It's so good. Or that weekend, you spent the entire weekend binging the show because you just couldn't stop. Monday morning, you go into work, oh, you've got to check this show out. It is so good. It is incredible. Or that book that you keep giving out to every single person because, like, I was up way too late reading this book and I could not put it down. Whenever we find something we're excited about, we want to share it. And that's kind of the same thing that's happening here. So for us, if we are excited about what God is doing in our lives, if we are engaged and excited about what God is doing in our midst, in the church, then we should naturally be inviting others to join us. I mean, after all, the church's mission is making disciples. And eventually, if you're trying to make disciples, eventually at some point, there's going to be some sort of an invitation at some point. So that brings back the question, why don't we invite more? Why don't we invite more? I think a lot of us tend to overthink it. A lot of us tend to get in our own heads about this. Maybe you can relate to some of these internal dialogues. Maybe you've had similar thoughts in your own head about inviting. You think, well, how do I say this without sounding weird? Or, I don't want to be that Christian who does that. What if they say no and I invite them? Or what if I mess it up? I mean, after all, we have all seen invites to church go very, very badly. Maybe if you're new or you're not particularly familiar with church, maybe you've experienced some of these bad invitations. Maybe one like the oversell invitation. Our service will literally change your life. Our guitarist Bernie is the next Jimi Hendrix. You got to be here. You have to. Or maybe there's the undersell. Well, there's this thing that like I'm gonna be there, and like maybe if you're not doing anything, maybe you could like come or something like that. The undersell. Maybe there's the desperate plea. Please come. I will love you forever if you come. I will babysit your cat if you just come. Or then there's like the bad fire hose approach. I've seen your kids playing out in the yard. I've seen what they do. Your kids need Jesus. You probably need Jesus. Get in church. Or sometimes for us, we just assume like, hey, they're not already in church. They're probably not interested. Or maybe they'll think I'm judging them if I invite them. Or maybe they'll say no and things will just get weird. Well, let's take a look again at Philip's invite, and let's see if we can learn from what Philip did and what Philip didn't do. So again, if we go back to verse 45, it says, Philip found Nathanael. Now, from the context of this passage, we can infer that Philip already had an existing relationship with Nathanael. So, when Philip is excited, he wants to go invite somebody, the first person he goes to is somebody he already knows, somebody who's a friend, not some stranger on the street. Now, so the first principle we learn from Philip is start with people you know. Start with people you know. Inviting doesn't have to mean evangelizing a stranger at Target. It can mean starting with the people who are already in your life, people you already have an existing relationship with. So what does this look like? Well, there's lots of ways you can categorize this. I picked 4 specific categories of people who are in your life. Friends, people you're friends with. You could draw a circle and you could write the names or make a list of all the people who are in your life who are friends. And make a list of that. You could do the same thing with family. Okay, family, immediate family, extended family, in-laws. We can write down a list of all of the people who are in your life already who are a category of family. Co-workers. Most of us work with people at some level in some other places. So that's an opportunity. Those people already have an existing relationship with us. Neighbors. Maybe there's neighbors that you're familiar with or you can have conversations with. All of those people can go in a specific category. And if you look and you do the work and write down some of these people, what you will see is that this is your circle of influence. This is your unique circle of influence. These are people that God has already placed into your life. People you already have relationships with. So it just makes sense that we would want to start with those people when it comes to the idea of inviting. Now, we're going to focus a lot on that part of it, but just a quick caveat. Now, this doesn't mean that we are never to invite somebody who is a stranger. There might be a time when God might call you to talk to somebody or invite somebody with whom you have no existing relationship. In fact, it happened to Philip in Acts chapter 8. You should read that one. It's a good story, where Philip was asked to go invite somebody he didn't know. But in general, it's perfectly fine for us to start with the people we know. So what's the second thing we can learn from Philip? What's the second thing? Use your honesty and your excitement. Use your honesty and your excitement. Philip's invitation was not pushy. It was not weird. He just shared his experience. He says, look, I found him. I found the Messiah. So think about this. Think about, for a second, about a time in your life where you experienced God and you were really, really excited about it. Maybe it was the story of how you came to follow Jesus. Maybe it was a time that God stepped in and answered prayer for you. Maybe it was the baptism service and dedication service we had a couple weeks ago. It was super exciting. Maybe you're part of a ministry that's planning a big event. You've been part of that planning team, and you were really excited about this event upcoming. I'm pretty sure there was probably an inclination somewhere in you when you were experiencing this that maybe you should tell somebody else about it, that maybe you're excited about it and you want to say something to somebody else. Listen to that. Let your excitement lead you. Don't feel like you have to have an entire gospel presentation memorized before you talk to somebody about how you're excited about what's happening in your life or at church. You let your excitement lead you. Let it happen. So back to our story here. Philip shares his excitement with Nathanael. He shares it with him. How does Nathanael respond to Philip's invitation and his excitement? Well, let's look, verse 46. Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Asked Nathanael. Dum, dum, dum. Not exactly what Philip would have wanted to hear. You can almost see Nathanael's face scrunch up. It's like, Nazareth? Really? It's like you told a teenager you're having Brussels sprouts for dinner. So Philip, talk about a downer for Philip. This is just not what he wanted to hear. Philip excitedly gets up the courage to talk to Nathanael about Jesus. And Nathanael instantly pours cold water on his invite. Philip has encountered resistance. And when it comes to inviting others, for many of us, this is the moment we're most afraid of. This is the moment we're most intimidated by. That possibility of resistance or rejection. Most of us really don't like rejection. And we don't like the awkwardness or embarrassment that comes with it, do we? In fact, it was that kind of fear of embarrassment or awkwardness that led to me overthinking and hesitating when it comes to asking this girl out. I don't know about you. I'm personally very sensitive to the idea of embarrassment. I hate it. Some people don't like watching horror movies or something with lots of violence or something like that. For me, I don't like watching embarrassing movies. If a scene is too embarrassing, I got to turn it off. I am very sensitive to that. So, after overthinking for 40 minutes and building up my courage to finally approach this girl and looking at every single thing in the store up to this point, I finally get an opening. I finally see her at the checkout counter. I had a random item that I was going to use as my, housewarming gift. And I walk up, and I approach her, and I ask her out. She just looks at me and is like, no. Nothing else. Just no. Whew, those are fun moments, aren't they? Not the greatest feeling you'll ever have. So how many of you would say, I love getting rejected? Personal, professional embarrassment, sign me up for that. Nobody's like that. In fact, most of us go out of our way to avoid getting embarrassed and avoid getting rejected. And I think sometimes for us, that's why it can be so hard for us to step out and invite someone to church or to engage in a spiritual conversation with someone. We think it's just much easier just not to invite anybody than to risk that rejection, risk that resistance. So Nathanael puts up resistance because Jesus was from Nazareth. Now, back in the day, Nazareth was kind of a small, obscure place. It didn't have a great reputation. Some people expected the Messiah to come out of a much bigger place. So he'd heard all these bad things about Nazareth. And so that was leading him to question the invite to come see Jesus from Philip. And I'm sure we can all imagine an invite scenario that went similarly bad for us in the modern day. Think about this. You are going to invite a neighbor to church. You're out in your yard. You're doing some yard work. Your neighbor's out doing some yard work. You start up a conversation. Neighbor asks, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You mention you're going to go to church. And then you say, okay, I'm going to invite my neighbor to church. And you say, hey, why don't you come with me? I'd love to have you with us. And your neighbor responds with, I don't think I could go to church. There's way too many hypocrites in church. Or maybe they come out and they start telling you this horror story about this terrible church experience and how they feel like they can never set foot in a church again because of how horrible past experience they have. And in those moments, how we handle that resistance, how we handle that rejection can play a big role in both our success in inviting and our willingness to continue doing it despite the circumstances. So how do we navigate resistance? Well, let's look at what Philip did. Verse 46, the second half. Philip says, "Come and see." Come and see. That's how he responds to Nathanael's resistance. Come and see. So the first thing we can learn from this particular statement is what Philip didn't do. Philip didn't get defensive in this moment. He didn't launch into an apologetic argument with Nathanael. Really, the Messiah is this or this. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't try to change Nathanael's mind on the spot. That's not what he does. He also doesn't take it as a personal rejection. He doesn't let it dissuade him from ever inviting anybody ever again. He just says, "Come and see." So the third thing we learn from Nathanael is to face resistance with calm. Face resistance with calm. There's much more to this response of "come and see" than we might be initially thinking. It's so simple, but it's so brilliant a response because it's simultaneously encouraging and challenging. He's saying to Nathanael, "Come and see. Give it a try. Check it out for yourself. Take a look." He gently extends the invitation to him again, but he's also challenging Nathanael's underlying assumptions. You think nothing good can come from Nazareth? Come and find out if you're right. Come and see if that's true. And I think the same principle can work for us. In the examples we gave earlier, your neighbor responds with, man, church is so full of hypocrites. You could say yeah, we're all kind of guilty of that at some times. But what if that's not all there is to it? What if there's a lot more to it? Why don't you come and see? Or for the neighbor who had terrible church circumstances, man, that sounds horrible. I don't know if I'd want to go to church if I experienced that too. But what if there was a church that was different? What if there was a church that wasn't like that? Why don't you come and see? Why don't you come and see? This come and see approach is a great way for us to gain confidence, both in overcoming resistance without being pushy, but also not giving up either. So what if the invite goes badly? What if the invite goes badly? Maybe if it's like my date offer and you get outright, unambiguously rejected, that's going to be really tough. That's disheartening. But this is where adopting a come and see mindset in addition to the approach can be so powerful for us. So what is the come and see mindset? Well, too often when it comes to inviting somebody else, we review resistance or rejection as a personal failure. Like it's an indictment upon us if we get rejected, or it's a sign that they don't like us, they don't care about us. We take it personally. But a come and see mindset actually helps us change that. When Philip says to Nathanael, "Come and see," what is he doing in practice? What he's saying in practice, he's saying, I don't need to be the one to convince you. Let me show you to Jesus, and let me let Jesus convince you. He's shifting responsibility for the outcome of the invite from himself and onto Jesus. He's saying, it's my job to point you to Jesus, and I will let Jesus take it from there. And this is key. It's not necessarily our job to convince anyone. It's our job to invite people. Success isn't necessarily measured by someone's response. It's measured by the invitation itself. So if they say no, that's okay. If they resist, that's totally normal. And if they come and they are impacted, God is definitely at work. But remember, you are not the destination. Jesus is. So while we can and we do certainly play a role in the spiritual journey of others, a person's response to Jesus is between them and God. And here's the thing for us. We can trust Jesus with the outcome. We can trust Jesus with the outcome. It's the fourth thing we learn from Philip. Philip convinces Nathanael with his come and see to actually go and meet Jesus. Verse 47. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." Can you imagine Philip standing to the side watching this whole conversation play out? I imagine he's got this kind of wry little smile on his face as he's watching like Jesus blow up this guy's assumptions in like 2 lines. But more than that, can you imagine the joy that Philip felt in this moment? The joy he found when he saw a friend decide that he was going to follow Jesus. And not only is his friend going to follow Jesus, but now he's going to be able to journey with his friend as they learn about Jesus and follow Jesus. They're going to be able to do life together because he invited. I want each and every one of you to be able to experience that same joy, that same moment where you watch somebody you have a relationship with or who you invited decide to follow Jesus, take that step, and now you get to do life of faith together. I want each and every one of us to be able to experience that moment. And yeah, it means that we're going to have to get out of our comfort zone. We're going to face resistance. We may even face some outright rejection at times. But oh man, is it worth it for these moments? Is it worth it for that moment when someone commits their life to Jesus? So if we're going to invite, if we're going to actually do this, if we're going to step out, take the chance, and actually do this, what are some practical tools? What are some tools that we can use that are going to help us be a little bit more successful? Well, let's look at 5 of them. There's 5 things that can help us take the fear out of inviting. And the first one is this: be specific. When you invite somebody, be very specific. The idea of saying, "Hey, do you want to come sometime?" is just a very easy invite to ignore. Instead, say something like this: "Hey, come to the 9 a.m. service with me this week. We'll grab brunch afterwards." It's a specific invitation. It gives them something to respond to, and it gives them a little bit of an incentive. Or you can say something like, "Come out to Wing Night. It's the last Sunday of the month. It's over at Joy's. I'd love to have you join it. The guys there are great." It's a great invitation. It's something very specific. You give them the details and the information and why they should come out. So be specific if you're going to invite somebody. The second thing we can do: use your real relationships. This is what we talked about earlier. Start with friends, neighbors, coworkers, people you already know and who already trust you. What I want you to do on this front is I want you to make a list. Make a list of 2 or 3 people from one of those 4 categories, or combine them, whatever you want to do. Make a list of 2 to 3 people this week. And I want you to intentionally pray for them. And I want you to pray for them, and I want you to pray for the opportunity to invite them this week. Start with your real relationships. Get specific about it. Number 3, keep the pressure low. You are not trying to give a sales pitch. This is not a contract negotiation. When you invite somebody, all you're trying to tell them is, "Hey, you're important to me. This is important to me too. I would love for you to come experience it with me." Keep the pressure low. Do not try and cajole people or force people into doing it. That's not going to work out well for you. Number 4, share why it matters to you. Why does church matter to you? Why does this event matter to you? Why does this thing matter? Okay, share about that. You say something like, "Man, I have found hope here. Man, I have found community and relationships in this place that have changed the way I see faith. Man, this place has been so good for me. This event has been so good for me, and I think it could be really good for you too." The idea that someone experienced something, a friend of yours experienced something, is a powerful thing that somebody might be motivated by. And the last thing, what we just talked about, trust Jesus with the outcome. Remember, you are not the hero of the story. Your job is to open the door. It's Jesus' job to change hearts. That's not your job. So invite and trust Jesus with the outcome of our invitation. So in closing this week, who's your Nathaniel? Who's your Nathaniel? Who has God placed in your life? If you want to respond on your connection card, maybe you already know the name of somebody that you want to invite. Write that down. I'll be praying for that person with you this week as well. Or if you don't, are you willing to commit to thinking through this? Are you willing to try and think through who God has already placed in your life and who you might be able to invite this week? If you are willing to try this, write that down on your connection card. What if next Sunday someone new is sitting beside you simply because you invited them in the next week? You never know how God might use one simple, low-pressure invite to change someone's eternity.
Thanks again for listening. Any step you take towards Jesus is a step in the right direction. You can find out more about us at crbic.org. That's crbic.org.